Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast on this day, International Women's Day, in the month that women are celebrated. It is Women's History Month. And I hope that there is a woman in your life that you can pick up the phone and call and say thank you, because every woman should be appreciated. And I am very appreciative and very excited that you're able to join me for this wonderful reunion with a friend from Davenport, Iowa, who now lives in Jacksonville, Florida, but we met when we lived in Davenport, Iowa. Shalia, how are you?
I am excellent. How are you, Pamela?
Wonderful, wonderful. It is so good to see you after almost 30 years.
Just about.
Isn't that
Just
wild?
about. It would be close. I think, when did you leave the Quad Cities?
Well, gee whiz. I left New Orleans in 94. So I left the Quad Cities and went to New Orleans.
So you left in 94?
No, I left before then, but I'm just saying it was like 3 years, so maybe like 91 that I left Iowa and moved to New Orleans.
Okay, so if you left from what I remember, what I recall, let's see. So I would say probably about 28 years.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. Yes.
So look, we have so much to talk about.
Okay.
And I've invited a few of our friends to be a part of this conversation tonight.
Oh,
just want to let you know. Yes. As they watch and have comments. Look, you have to have been under a rock or just completely out of touch to not know about the big interview that Oprah did with Meghan and Harry. You and your husband, you're a biracial couple. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about how that is unfolding, and have things changed? Were you surprised? And you're an entrepreneur. You're a wife, you're a mom, you're a grandmother now. Congratulations many times, right?
Absolutely. Great grandma.
And great grandma. Wow, that's right. You did tell me that.
Yes.
And you've been an advocate for so many years for so many people and so many various causes. But let's get to the juicy stuff first.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, yeah. With Meghan, as bless her sweetheart, as an African-American woman, finding out that she was going to be marrying into the royal family, even though it would be easy for someone to not know exactly that she is of mixed race, but we all knew that she was. Did you have any thoughts about that? Or like, I thought, great, we get somebody in the palace. I told my husband, Scott, don't scrape the plate. We might get invited now.
I never gave it a second thought. When she was, when all of the big conversation about her marrying into the royal family and all of that came about, I was more or less kind of, I didn't really have an opinion about it, because I thought that the time for issues, the broad issues of racism, was kind of filing behind us. And it wasn't until, again, this year that I began to think that perhaps I was wrong. Maybe it's not filing behind us. I was just operating from a different platform, because I had become immune to a lot of the stares and conversations and whatever.
So you and John, who's white, you all have been married for how many years?
John and I have now been married for 36 years.
So 36 years ago, what was that like for you, making the announcement that you are marrying somebody white, and for him, he's marrying somebody black? You have your black children and he has his white children. What was it like for you all trying to merge, not just merging a family, but merging black children and white children? Black children doing white man tells them to do, white children doing what a black woman tells them to do. What was that like?
You know, I don't think it was very difficult for my children to accept the disciplines of the white man, because they were very young when he came in. And so that's what they knew. And they saw that I was accepting of it. And so they went along with whatever I said.
Gotcha.
As far as with his children, it was the opposite, because they had someone else influencing their decisions in the way they felt about the relationship. So it was very difficult with them. And I think that there was some biases that were thrown at them, that they needed to feel a certain way about me and about my children. And so it ultimately caused a great split for about 15 years.
And how did John handle that? I mean, those are his children. He loves his children. He has his wife. He loves his wife.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is as John and I merged our lives together, he began to also take part in biblical rights and wrongs and studies and understanding what God says and what God doesn't say. And so it was from that perspective that he made his decisions. And so many times the decisions were favorable to me and not so favorable to the children, because he gave them every opportunity to participate in our relationship as a family. But if they chose not to, he let them know that he was not going to separate from the family in order to spend time with them. So they either had to come in, or they could just deny being a part of the family, and that would be fine.
So you said it was the biblical principles. How much of an influence did Shalia have and God? Which one?
Well, you know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe that when it came to interpretation and understanding the Bible, I think that my influence was great. It was absolutely great. And John was a Catholic by faith. His family are very devout in that religion as Catholics, but I was a strong Baptist. And, you know, the whole, when a man takes on a wife, that, you know, he holds her and he forsakes all others, that whole thing. And the same thing went for the woman, for the husband. I had a grandmother that was absolutely 100% strong in our relationship in the very beginning. And she didn't spare any words, as you say. She didn't spare the rod. It was like, this is the way you're going to do it, and this is how you do it. Even to the point of, just because I took on a job outside of the home and decided to be an entrepreneur and decided to put my time into that job, that did not relinquish my womanly duties. That Proverb 31 woman was still there, and you will do your job.
You mentioned taking the job outside the home. It was not just taking a job outside the home. You started your own business, and you currently own a business in Jacksonville, as is indicated there on the screen, an insurance company. How was there a lot of discussion about that, on whether or not you would do something like that?
Well, I think there was, because from in the very beginning, a lot of my I think I had moments of depression, because there was so much inside of me that I needed to get out. And at first there was not a lot of support. And when I met John 39 years ago, his biggest thing was, okay, look, do whatever it is that you want to do. And my thoughts was always, you know, because we were in an era where Black women, let's be honest, was not getting loans. They weren't being given the opportunities. And so when he joined forces with me, he said, just do what it is you want to do. I got your back. Just saying that was enough to motivate me to write my business plan, to do what I needed to do, to get it in front of, at that time, it was Bank Britain in Iowa. They looked at the plan and they gave me the loan to open the company that I opened there. And it was from there that I just went on. There was no looking back. Just to know that he had my back was enough.
Yeah. When you think about, and you mentioned about depression, and one of the things that is being talked about from the interview with Meghan and Oprah and her husband Harry was when she talked about her mental illness during the time, and even having suicidal thoughts and not having the support of anybody in the firm to help her. There's also this stigma associated with mental illness already.
Right.
And to think about Meghan being in that spot, we all saw the wedding, or we've seen pictures, and we have this fairy tale idea. This is in the palace, in
Right.
all's well. She's in this fairy tale situation with this man that she loves, only to find out from that interview last night, she was about to have a breakdown. She wanted to take her life.
Yes.
How do you think that's going to help with other women who may have feelings that something's not quite right, and encourage them to come forth to seek help?
I think that would, if there were women that are on the brink that was listening to her describe her journey, how she overcame that overwhelming depression that had her soul pushed down to want to take her lives. I sat in the rooms with those people that talk about that. I facilitate group that talk about that. And one of the things is, many times people just want to be heard. Many people think that because of your position and because of perhaps maybe a prestige or clout or whatever that you might have, that there's no such thing as depression, that you should be able to handle that and move on through it. But people, the hardest part for a person to understand is, just because you're able to cope with many things, don't mean everyone is able to cope. And so if a person needs to be heard, it's not a time for you to force your opinions, or it's not a time for you to have an advice that doesn't necessarily fit into their little circle right then. It's a time to listen and learn, because many people are at that suicide stage. They want to get out of here, and they want to go now, because they feel like life is really not worth living if they can't be heard. And many times people are not heard. They are only listened to in order for you to give a response. You have to learn to hear them, because hearing someone, there's something deep.
Yeah. Were you surprised to hear that she was going through that Meghan was going through that?
No.
You were not surprised?
No.
Why?
The reason why I wasn't surprised, because she did at a point have a fairy tale world. She was acting, she was doing her thing, and all of that. So wanting to be accepted from that platform, and having the fans and the fanship that was there, that would kind of make her think that everything was going to be okay. But then you get into this family that and I was in a similar situation, that thinks that his ex-wife owned Moline, Illinois, with her family. And so talking down about you, and his family thinking that, Oh, when you said a Black woman, I thought you were talking like Holly Berry Black. You know what I'm saying? And so,
They know black.
yeah. And so when you come back from vacation and you come to the home and you hear things like, oh, the kids had a slingshot. Oh, look, Lloyd, isn't that one of those, what do they call it? Like nigger shooters? And oh, and then run to your bedroom crying because you didn't mean to say that, but then me having to be the bigger person to walk into the room and comfort you and say, it's okay, I understand. These were people that lived and never had seen one Black in their community. And so here she is coming in. They're not used to a Black person in their community as in family. It was going to be that way. It was going to be, what are the children going to look like? What in the world has he brought upon us? You know, what will outsiders think? What are they going to say?
So do you think Megan was living, even though it was Hollywood, she was living in an easier world than being in this cluster, this bubble of the royal family?
Yes, because this cluster, this bubble had something else. It had love. To love someone so much that you marry them as your spouse, you share those intimate details and times with them. And then to find out that there's some decisions being made behind your back and he didn't have your back.
Well, you know what? I thought in my mind, when they accepted her and said that it was okay for him to marry her, you would have thought all of those things would have been discussed. Okay, so you want to marry her, but if y'all have any little chaps, don't expect any titles and don't expect any protection. How could they not have told them that part? And then let me decide, do I want to be a part of this? I love you, but I'm not sure, I'm not prepared for my child to be treated like an outcast.
See, those were the background. Those are the family gatherings that you didn't necessarily attend.
Well, yeah.
Well, you weren't there in when she and someone else met in the parlor to have tea before you walked in. There was those discussions that were happening. I know all about them. And the interesting part was when John's father used to give gifts, okay, he would write a check for 10 for John and maybe 2,500 for all the children. Well, in the very beginning, he tried to do that. Then it got very quiet and silent because he didn't want to do that anymore for my children. And so you began to see the differences being made slowly and surely. You also start to see the pulling away of family members and the non-acceptance. While the children were very small, oh, they're so cute, but when they started to grow up and blossom and mature, it wasn't so cute anymore.
For those of you who are just joining us, you are watching Sisters of Wellness, where we are very excited to sow into the lives of those who are watching and listening. Shalia is married to a white man of German descent, and very, very timely that we're talking on the show today after the interview with Meghan and Harry and Oprah, where things that some say that perhaps she should have known about or been prepared for. Or maybe, what about this, Shalia? She was light enough that maybe she thought she was white and all was going to be well.
Possibly.
Do you think that that's a rude awakening sometimes for biracial people?
I think that it is. I have a granddaughter that has blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's very pale. And she just left and she went to the Navy. She just left at 20 years old, went to the Navy. That's what she's doing. But I never knew the things that she was going through up in the whitest part of Arizona you could live in. They lived in Williams, Arizona. So she came back and she told me, she said, Nana, you don't understand. I wasn't Black enough to be accepted by Black people. And I wasn't white enough to be accepted by white people. Because my nose wasn't shaped like theirs and my hair was curly. And so they knew that I wasn't white, even though my eyes are blue. She said, for a long time, they thought I was until my mom came to the school. And then all things changed.
Really?
Yes. So the interesting part is that even though the school like accepted her mom and she did so many things in the school, you know, for teaching and structuring and helping with the children, the little people and their parents began to form opinions about if justice was good enough to hang out with their children.
Really?
Yes. So I'm not surprised that, because Justice for the longest time, when we brought her to Jacksonville at first, her thoughts was that she, even though she experienced that in Arizona, she thought that was a fluke. Then she got to Jacksonville and she saw that it wasn't a fluke, but that's the way people really feel, because her hair had got kinkier as time went on. And so people looked at her more like albino, but she, of course, with blue eyes, that wasn't cutting it either. And so her biggest thing was that she always wanted to know, why do white people treat me like this when I have a dad that's white? And why do Black people treat me like this when I have a mom that's Black? And how come I just can't be left alone? Because Justice for the longest period of time thought she was white. That's what she told me. I'm not Black like you, I'm white.
And I'm thinking that maybe Megan suffered from that, and I say suffer, was dealing with that as well, that, you know, she got selected.
Right.
Harry could have picked anybody he wanted to, but he picked me.
Right.
And so I must be even whiter than I thought I was.
Absolutely. But see, to get smacked with the harsh reality that not quite white enough, had to be devastating. And so to try to understand where she was when she fell into the depression of wanting to kill herself, I can't say that I could ever do that. I can't tell you what that felt like, but I can tell you what depression felt like when you struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle, trying to make a way, but to always be pinned down under the thought that you can't ever make a way because your skin is dark. I understand that. I don't understand. So maybe the two are akin. Maybe there's something that you could pull out of it, but because I always wonder, why did I always have to carry the skeletons of the past? What do you mean that I have to get up twice as early and work twice as hard and do twice as much? Why is that my burden? You know, and so that always depressed me.
Did it really?
Yes, it did. I couldn't understand that. And I was angry about it. And so when I put my foot forward to try to overcome all of the skeletons in the bag on my back, you know, I'm dragging all of this extra. And that's what angers me to this degree of, like, how in the world can you say that I had all the advantages that you've had because I'm now a business owner and I'm able to operate in? I don't have the same advantages. I staged my salon with a Caucasian girl at the front desk.
In Davenport, Iowa? I'm sure.
Absolutely. So that no one knew exactly who owned the business. I remember doing that because I remember Louis Farrakhan saying these words. He said, Quit letting everyone know what you're doing. Infiltrate in the way that you need to. Don't ever tell them exactly what you're doing.
Mm.
And I have never thought anything of Louis Farrakhan, but that particular morning, I listened to that and I thought, there was an aha moment. Fix things so that they are not quite sure.
Yeah. Then when
And
they
watch
come,
your success.
yeah, that's very, very, very interesting. I know someone who owned a business and had white managers, white males, who were his managers the majority of the time. And he had someone come in the store that had a complaint, and he spoke to the manager and he said, I want to talk to your boss who owns this place. So the manager goes and gets the black man who owns the business. And then the white man says to him, I want to talk to your boss.
You talking to.
Right, right, right.
That's what
It
that
couldn't
happened
possibly
several
be
times.
you. Somebody's over you. Who's your
Yes,
boss?
yes.
Shalia, you have been on this journey for 30 plus years in living in this world with a man that you love in a world that may not love you
Right.
and him. As Meghan and Harry currently are faced with, for him, I mean, it's not just a world, it is a institution, the British institution. And, you know, prayerfully, they will be able to manage this because there's enough that happens in a marriage, in a relationship, that you don't need to sprinkle color in it
That's true. That's
to
true.
add to it. But when
That's
you
true.
have that, do you think that will help bring them closer together?
You know what? In her instance, I can't say so. I think that John and I became very close because one of the things I was able to explain to him is that, see, you don't quite get it. And I'm going to tell you why you don't get it. I told him, I said, from I was the first Black family that moved south of 18th Avenue in Rock Island. I went to all white school, Francis Willard. I then came up through mostly all white schools, coming all the way into, high school and then beyond. Here's the deal. I told him, I always had a peep window into your world. Always.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly how your world operates, but you've never peeped into mine because you didn't have a reason to. Now, all of a sudden, you are in the midst of my world. You need to pay close attention on how to operate here. That was the difference. Meghan never had a peep window into the Black world herself. So how could she explain it?
Yeah. And Harry, of course, hasn't had a peep into any world.
Right. He could show her his world, but his world,
that world, but now he's out of that. So now they're like,
right. His world was classified even in a different space than just being white.
right.
It was more than just being white because she knew how that world operated, but she didn't understand how the royal world operated. And she didn't understand how they will cut you to the core. Princess Diana, a poor white girl coming into that world, she couldn't hang. There's something different about that. It's different. It's like if they want to learn, maybe she should have visited being Black 100% and then try to understand that movement and then into this movement, because that is huge.
Or maybe they should just not have approved of the marriage.
Well, the family could have denounced it, but they didn't.
Right.
They wanted to look like they were progressive and moving in the stream of society today.
And they didn't count on this little colored girl having the gumption to say, hey, Well, as I listened to them, they didn't just on their own not want to be there. It was they were kind of guided out, it seems.
But you know what? I think it's very easy to say I was guided out when I decided I didn't want to be a part of something anymore because I was terrified of what was coming down on me. The hard part was this, is accepting the fact that this world consists of things that you won't necessarily understand how to navigate. And so you must tie yourself to someone who can show you. Now, if you're unwilling to do that, and then you've got this husband that he went through the whole thing with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that are quiet and hushed, and you just don't talk about them. And it reminds me, I read this book a while back for school. It was The Invisible Man.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, the grandfather says to the young man that's being groomed to speak on the platforms that when the boy said, "Grandpa, you just the way you just talked to Mr. Monroe, I thought you told me to be respectful." He said, "Yes, I told you to yes some, and I mean yes some till they pop wide open." I will never forget that line in that book because this boy missed the whole thing. It's like you act one way when you're in front of them and another way when you're outside of it. You have to, if you want to hold on to who you are, hold on to who you are. That's okay. But when you're in a specific light, you have to shine like all the other lights.
Yeah.
And you can't dictate how you're going to do it. You can't. That's one of the things that always bother me about people taking position. They take a position and then they want to tell here's a perfect analogy. How can the pot tell the potter what it was created to be?
Mm-hmm.
When you come into someone else's space, you must learn that space. You don't get to dictate how it goes. If it's too much for you, get out of it.
Exactly. And so all of those that are in it, the queen, I'm just puzzled because when she said that the first time she met the queen, that Harry said, "We're going to meet my grandmother. Do you know how to curtsy?" She's like, "No." And she practiced outside the house before she went in.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So it seems as if somehow they were in that world and just automatically assumed that she was going to read her clip note about what it was like. But I don't know, maybe the only way that you know is to be in it and then isolate her. And she can't call up her girlfriends and say, "Look, let me tell you what they told me today."
Girl.
Because she said they took her driver's license, they took her keys. You become the property of this firm, this royal family.
Right.
And I just think they should have told her. Go ahead.
Just think about look at our ex-president. They tried to take all of his things and put him in a position, and he couldn't quite get there either. There's certain things, there are some people that are groomed for things. Let me give you.
He does have some intelligence where it could have gotten through to her, or at least given her the option. Because now, because think about it. You're married to John.
Yes.
You all had children independent of each other, but you come together and you're pregnant, and all of a sudden they tell you, "Oh, well, you may be having his baby, but he's not going to be a part of this family." What?
Right. That would have been fine with me.
But not with her, because it wouldn't have been fine with most people. though.
Yeah, it may not have been fine with most people, but the thing is that it would have been fine with me because what you think does not define me.
I
What
know,
you
but
think will not define my children.
royalty and protection and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like while she may be under attack by some in London, that somebody dropped the ball. This was not just, I don't know, maybe she should
You
have gone
know,
to YouTube.
it always bothers me, even with these prenuptials, right? Like, people are marrying rich people, okay? And then they don't want to sign a prenup. I mean, what makes you think because you're marrying this person, you're entitled to what they have?
We became
You married a person. Did you marry the person or did you marry a lifestyle?
It doesn't come together?
Not always. I married John. All of the farmland, all of the things that was down there, all of the extra that came with marrying John, I didn't care about that because I was doing Shalia.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that I was going to care for me and the children. The only reason John and I did not have a child is I'm very serious. I had a nightmare.
You did?
Yeah, that this child was going to be born. It was going to be redhead, green eyes like his, and was going to be horrible. And I said I wasn't doing that.
Okay.
And so we didn't. Now, did his parents, they said, is she going to have a child? And I told them no. That made them not like me.
Oh, really? They wanted you to?
Right, because I felt like they weren't good enough. I could not bring them a Gershner heir, and I did not care. Because this is who I am. You can't make me do that.
But Megan was in the situation where things were being made. Our friend Charlene from South Carolina is joining us. She said, royalty is a different breed.
Yes, it is.
Megan was in a position where they were calling all the shots. At one point, she said when she wanted to go to have lunch with some friends, they told her, you're all over the place already. She said, I haven't been out of the house in 4 months. But somebody should tell you can't come out of the house.
Well,
and then you make a decision of whether or not this is a life that I want for me. But to just be goo goo gaga because he's tall, handsome, and whatever else,
So what about etiquette? What about, to the degree that she's dating this guy and she doesn't even think outside the box enough to say, at one point, I'm going to go to the palace. Mm-hmm. If this thing gets serious, I'm going to the palace. Why wasn't she thinking that way?
Exactly. That's what I said. Why didn't she YouTube this?
And then at one point,
Lady Diana.
Like, why didn't you set Kate to the side and say, hey, can we chat?
But Kate probably couldn't say anything because they're silenced.
Well,
so then
you would have had an indication that something's not quite right.
I know. But back to the point that I said earlier, I think she was so caught up. Was so caught up. I'm here, I'm in, he wants me, he can pick anybody, he wants me, I must be whiter than I thought I was.
Deborah, I heard a portion of one of the questions, and it was like, when they asked who said it, and she didn't want to say, and he didn't want to say.
About the skin color, the tone of the child.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. If somebody said that, but yet you can't say who said it, and she can't say who said it, but when it was asked directly of him, he still wouldn't say, but yet he told her. You told her that. If John came to me and told me something that one of his family members said, and I could not confront them, it would have been war, because I'm going to confront you. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's part of what was driving her absolutely nuts. That she found herself in a place, as Oprah said, were you silent or were you silenced? And she said the latter.
By
So
him.
by the
No, it
whole,
was by him because
well, the organization.
if he would have supported her, voice, like, okay, he told me, oh, just leave it alone. Don't say anything. But I went directly to his family. I wrote a letter because I didn't want to be interrupted. I wrote a letter to the letter. Everything that I ever wanted to say, I said it. Did they like it? Absolutely not. And upon the passing of everybody, the family gave me the letter back.
Oh, they kept it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so here's the difference. Harry himself said that, there were only so many options he had. I mean, this really, to me, has shed a light on this organization that is much more than we thought. I mean, we see the smiles, we see the waves. Charlene said that she should have watched the movie Get Out. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen it. I'm sorry, I'm not a movie buff. I'm going to have to watch it now, Charlene.
Charlene was
She wrote
married.
a letter to John's family also. Absolutely.
Interesting. Interesting. I think that, and we'll have to have a show with you ladies, because there's also the perception that happens with Black women who are married to white men and how Black people treat you.
Absolutely. Oh, that's another show. That's a for real show. No.
We talk about white folks.
like really? Do you want to really know some stuff? Charlene and I went out one night and she was a pork chop. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and with, as they say, with that being said, I think it really speaks to these unions that come together when you find somebody that you connect with, and then understanding that you have all of these other challenges to deal with.
Yes.
Because you're one color, one race, one nationality, and he's another.
Right.
And Charlene said earlier that love makes you blind.
It does.
And then you get out of bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you walk through the corridors of life and people begin to terrorize you because they teach you that even though you're in your private world, when you're in the sanctity of your home and in your bedroom, you're now in their world. And they get to say and do whatever they want to say and do.
So, Shalia, did you know that it wasn't until, I think it was 1968, that the Supreme Court ruled that biracial marriages were legal?
Yeah. That whole movie Loving, I did sit through that. Yeah.
You saw that movie?
Yeah. That blew me away. And I was telling John, I was like, wow, look at that. I said, we went to Mississippi, where in the county that Mississippi burning occurred in, because John was an executive at Deere and Company, and he was their editor for the JD Journal, and he did their John Deere and Focus magazine and all that stuff. So we had to go on an interview down into the deltas and trying to get a story, rice fields and all that stuff going on. And we stayed in the Holiday Inn there and in that county. And he said, okay, let's go down.
Made it out.
Huh?
Let me just say I'm thankful that you made it out.
Yes. He says, let's go down to the pool in the hot tub. And I told him, I said, do you know where we are? He said, oh, again, the naivety of this man. And I said, okay. So I'm brave enough because I know what I'm going to have to do. And I've always believed if you die for a cause, and that'll be the end of it. So we'll go down. So we go down and we get into the hot tub, and the whole room clears.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what's wrong with everybody? I guess we got down here too late. I said, John, are you serious?
Right.
You didn't see the looks. You didn't see the stares. You didn't hear the whispers. Huh? What did they say? What did they do? Now, this is a journalist. And you missed that? It was that day that he began to pay attention. I told him, I said, traveling with you will get me killed because you really don't get it. He didn't.
Yeah. Because you know why? He didn't have to prior to you.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
We were at a football game in Knoxville, and the Gators beat Tennessee, and we had our Gator jackets on, and we're walking to the car, and Scott tried to hold my hand. I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Not wise.
Not wise. We're going to walk to the car and get out of here because these people are not happy that Tennessee just lost to the Gators. And we're not going to be flouncing across this campus holding hands, dude. And I think it is those situations that happened when you are married to somebody white that takes them by surprise because they haven't had to pay attention to it. Then also when January 6th happened, it brings to light again that this problem of race has not been solved. And the reality is Diana went through what she went through as well. But on top of that, Megan is having to had to deal with the race issue. It is just real. And it's not just wanting to call everything racist. It's just a fact.
Some of it is just absolute ignorance. And I'm sorry. People, we say they're racist, but I think that it goes a lot beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot beyond that. My former church in Arizona, my pastor and I went to war because he was on this whole track about Black Lives Matter being evil, and he was talking about the whole incident with Floyd, how this man was evil and what he had gone through. But Pamela, when I look at the situation with George Floyd, and I look at the situation with many of the other Blacks that have been murdered, and for people to not see the difference in how that went down versus what is going down now, from the Capitol raid to all of that, and they can't really see it. They really cannot see it. And and he said something that really struck me hard. He said something about, do not denounce your white skin color to please anybody. It is not your fault that you are white. And I came back. This is a pastor. This is a pastor. So I came back with it and I said, so is it George Floyd's fault or my children's fault or my fault that we are Black? Well, that's the way, if whatever God made you to be is what you were meant to be. I said, so when you read the book of Amos and you hear all of the information that's in there, do you not really see that you are not to treat people in the manner that you treat them? that the U.S. is very much like that city that sat there in all the greenery, filled with pastures of greenery, and able to feed their children and do all the things that they want to do. But yet they had this little segment over here that they kept poor. They isolated them. They stopped them from growth and thriving. I said, and I said, you're okay with that? That's not what I'm saying. I said, then what are you saying? Talk to me. But he and I had it, because I truly see that the scales were dropped from the eyes of society when what happened to George Floyd happened. He wasn't some important person. He wasn't anybody that we would have even given a second thought. But yet it was his murder that caused everyone, not just here in the US, but across the world, to begin to march for equality. He was just a common everyday man. Why did it happen when he was murdered? Because I say to this day, it wasn't a people's movement, it was a God's movement. It was time for people to see.
And even in that, we still see the things. Sometimes it seems as if when, and not a reason to not do, but it just intensifies those who are so firmly rooted in their beliefs that they get worse.
Right.
And then we see January 6th.
Yes.
And God protect us, because we don't know what else is going to happen in this country.
Right. But we continue to build on that. We continue to turn that into, it's like the split is huge, and we continue to turn it into a biblical thing. But if they really want to look at it from the biblical standpoint, then they need to really look at it from a biblical standpoint. You can't have it both ways. You can't just use particular scripture to support your mess.
Right.
And so for me, it's very difficult to, I like I said, I went to the church that I was going to. I mean, I can't go in there anymore because I'm very upset. Mm-hmm. I'm upset that that's your mentality.
Now, did that surprise you? Because so many people in the faith-based world, in non-African American churches, have those kind of views. Were you surprised?
Absolutely not. Because, see, I'm going to tell you something. My whole life, I have been very observant, okay? Like I told him, I said, you cannot tell me that you're not, he says, I don't see skin color. That's what he told me. I just see souls needing to be saved. So I told him these words. Then why was it every time you shook my hand, you wiped your hand on your pants?
Wow.
It's not, and I would tell you I told him there while we was there. I said, why do the people do that? I said, you continue to say that, oh, they're not seeing color. I said, but they'll shake your hand and wipe their hand on their pants. He goes, oh, well, it's going to take a lot of people a lot of time to, why should it take a person a lot of time to be okay with, me as a black or black people coming into the church? See, that's baloney to me.
Yeah.
But you have to call it the way you see it, and you have to deal with it.
Right. Shalia Gerstner in Jacksonville, Florida. We were friends in Davenport, Iowa, and so happy to reconnect, talking about the challenges that we continue to face. And it does sometimes, Shalia, I think about I even had, I will tell you, I was in my brother Franklin that lives in Northern California, and I was there visiting him, and he was in a predominantly white congregation, and I'm his sister visiting. And I'd never even told Franklin that somebody said this to me. Someone asked me, why didn't he want to go to a black church? Yeah.
Seriously, they were bold enough to ask you that.
Right. So there are people in white churches where black people are going and they really can't figure out, what are you doing here? Because we really, we want to see God. We don't want to see black people. Because remember, the one on the cross looks like them.
Right.
So yeah, they asked me that, and this whole dynamics of racism and religion in this country is another show.
It is. So, so, so you have two shows coming: the dynamics of racism and religion, and how black people view black women that are with white men. See, because there's no problem with white women and black men. The problem is black women with white men. Now that's your show. That will blow minds, and I would love to hear everybody's comment on it. Because that's some seriousness.
It really is. It really is. Hey, we were, gee whiz, we're about out of time, but you are grandparenting. You're grandparenting some teenage grandchildren.
Absolutely. So actually past their teens. They're in their 20s, and yeah.
And that's another show.
And they're having children.
And there's so many grandparents who are taking in grandchildren for various reasons.
Right.
Charlene is raising her grandson.
Yes.
Her daughter, Nicole.
Which is a beautiful baby.
Oh, he's so smart. He is so smart. He was actually on last Thursday. You'll have to watch that show.
Okay, I will.
He's such a smart little guy. Yeah. So, and we didn't get to talk about your business. You started an insurance. Tell us something about your insurance company real quick before.
Real quick. I started off working for United Healthcare, and they had me to help them to develop the community health workers platform. And so myself and 12 other people hit the streets of Jacksonville and created this whole platform where we went out and serviced the community of people that were, they called it community and state. That means that these were people that were on Medicare, Medicaid, and on just and was being serviced by the United Healthcare plans. So we went in there, and our biggest thing was to stop them from utilizing the ER room as their primary care.
Yeah.
And then we needed to investigate, myself as a social worker also went in to investigate, why were these people so ill? And so I began to do that. But prior to that, I was also working as a intensive outpatient therapist for alcohol and drug abuse and overeating and all of that kind of stuff. So all of these things, as I started to think about it, all of it tied back to lack of insurance or underinsured. People were having issues and problems due to the fact that they couldn't handle what life was throwing at them. And many times it was because it would have been a simple policy that when that child died, you wouldn't have had to go in debt to bury him and all of that sort of thing. And so these kinds of things made me start thinking. Since I was like 18, I've had life insurance policies on myself. And then at 20, my daughter, and, everyone that I've ever had responsibility for. So what I did is I went ahead and I picked up a license for insurance, and I worked with Aflac for a very short period of time because the duck is in everybody's home. And so I went from there. So I went from there and I thought, let me get into the group plans. And so I got into groups and 2 to 50 and then 2 to 100. And I began to see that even though these major brokerage firms, they weren't servicing certain parts of the community. And so I began to write small business plans for small groups, and it is just a blossom and prosper, and I absolutely love it. But I also like the intimacy of writing for individuals, because you get an opportunity to sit with them. It's like, and you learn about their families and what's going on, and so it's who I am. It seems like it's a part of that whole social work circle. You can get in there and you can sit with them, you can talk with them, you learn, what's needed for them, and then you kind of customize plans that work for them and their family.
And if you'd like to talk to Shalia, you can call her at 904-295-8498. We could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours tonight. I look forward to us doing this again off camera too.
Absolutely.
As things, have you had your shot?
Absolutely. They called me into Mayo Clinic the other day. I have a lot of allergies, and other things. And so they called me into Mayo Clinic and they nailed me the other day. So
how you feeling? So you have your second one that you have to get?
I felt a little tired at first. I never did get sore. Nothing ever happened to my arm, and nothing, everybody says that. But I felt a little disoriented. But I'm fine now.
Okay. So when is your second shot?
On the 22nd.
On the 22nd. Excellent. Well, I pray that everybody is continuing to wear their mask and staying safe. I did see that the CDC is saying if you've had your vaccine, then it is okay for you to gather with others who have had their vaccines. But that is not like, we're not getting a stamp on your forehead. Right. Somebody could say they had it and didn't have it, right?
Right. So I'm going to still wear my mask.
Keep wearing your mask, because the life you save may be your very own.
We will continue to wear our mask. Is Miss Charlene still on, or no? Did she leave?
I think she's still there. And Josette Jenkins Golette, thank you everybody for watching. Charlene said that she had negative things happen to her in the Catholic Church. And as we talk about African-American women married to white men, she said, I want to be on. She wants to be on too.
Okay, it's a deal, because I think she has a lot to add to that conversation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can.
I wish I had watched the interview of Megan, and therefore I would have had a lot more to add to that. My opinions would have been based upon exactly what I see as a therapist, as opposed to just my speculation. But like I said, it's very difficult to just to feel any particular way about it, because I've had to pull up my bootstraps and walk through this field of nasty on my own. So
yeah,
I don't know how to feel about it, except for doing the very thing that I advise not to do, and that is to say, you got to toughen up.
Right. And I think what it sounded like was, she didn't feel like she had much of a choice in who she was anymore. And one interview that Oprah did with CBS this morning, in the show with Gail this morning, when she first contacted Megan about an interview shortly after the marriage, and she said that Megan was told that she needed to be half of who she was.
Ooh. Wow.
And, yeah. So
now that's tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
That's tremendous.
Mm-hmm. And here again, I will say again, some of this stuff, they should have been more forthright with her as a complete outsider from another country, from another culture, from another race, to have just been completely honest with her. Because even with Harry, he doesn't know how to tell her how different this world is that he's in, how different that world is, because it's normal for him. He doesn't know any different. And so it's hard for him to truly prepare her because there's some things that he knew about that are just part of who he is. It's part of who they all are.
Lord, do you think that when he was talking to her, when they had their private times, and he was talking to her, do you think that it was in those times that he should have been able to say to her, look, these are some of the things that I've heard spoken by my grandmother. These are things I've heard my dad say. These are things that, and how does that feel to you when you hear me say that? I mean, at some point in your relationship, you discuss the fact that I'm Black. How do you think they really feel?
Well, see, here again, I don't think she knew how Black she was. So, yeah. And so I don't think that there was even a window of opportunity for that conversation to be had, because what are you having it for?
Okay, but look at my hair. I don't know why I did that, and the camera is totally opposite of the direction I'm trying to go.
Right,
But anyway.
it's hard to do your hair on camera.
I shouldn't have touched. But here's the thing. How could she not? I don't know. I don't know. I guess
because she didn't know she was Black.
But her mama's Black.
I don't care. She's
You
been
know
able
what?
to navigate and not have to be as Black.
Here, I can
And
show
then
you.
he picks her, and she thinks she's in like Flynn. The
I
queen
can show you this little blonde boy with hazel eyes that is whiter than John, and he's my grandson, JR. And when John said to JR, okay, so who are you? What color are you? And JR said, well, I'm Black. And John said, how can you say you're Black when you're whiter than I am? JR said, it's simple. What color is your mama?
Well, but
nobody taught him that.
But she's in Hollywood. She truly is operating a professional arena, and then she gets picked by a prince. So I really think that it took Megan by surprise, and I think so. I think that was part of her having to come to terms with. They think I'm a N-word. They're treating me like I'm an N-word, and they're going to want to treat my child that way. And what am I going to do? I thought they didn't notice. I don't know.
But I don't know. I think about that from the perspective of then what was in her mind as a human being. What was in her mind? How did she feel about Black people?
I really believe that she got caught off guard. I really believe
because
she thought whiter than she was.
Did Pamela, did she think that she was Caucasian? Did she think for one moment?
That's what I'm saying. I think she thought that she was whiter than she was. I think that's why this has been so. And they said I can marry him, so they obviously are going to treat me.
I can't, for the life of me, I cannot.
I think that's what happened.
I keep trying to understand and to see it, and
I just don't understand. Yeah, I think she was confused. And yes, her mother is Black. But if you don't see Megan's mother, because I didn't initially think Megan was Black.
Really?
I mean, the first time I saw her in a show, I didn't know that.
Well, you can look at, I guess I did because I knew that she looked like my granddaughters.
Okay. Well, I didn't, I didn't know whether Latino, but I didn't initially think Black initially.
Yeah,
And guess what, Shalia? Neither did she.
right. When the whole thing came out on Wendy Williams, right? And Wendy Williams was pretty much going through this whole scenario of how was this little girl gonna deal with it, and she was telling her to embrace your white side and just float on in there. Don't pay any attention to the Black side, and don't listen to this and that and other. But I keep this thought in my mind that I cannot believe that this young woman, for one moment, at some point in her life, if her mother was ever in her life, that she didn't have to deal with her Blackness. Or was it more like the Imitation of Life, where she
that's how I see it.
That Imitation of Life, maybe she's living, she's the live portrayal of Imitation of Life.
Yeah, that's what Charlene said. She missed that one also. I think, and I guarantee you, I would like to see Megan's list of BFFs.
Serena Williams is one of them.
Well, I don't know if it's a BFF. I mean, that is a best friend C. That's a BFC, best friend celebrity.
Ah.
And Oprah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
And if her folks that she's hanging out with looks like who she thinks she is, then she didn't have anybody to ground her.
Yeah.
And get her ready.
Well, when she was, the celebrity that she was, I mean, she never gave it any thought or consideration that pretty soon the Black person in me is going to be called out.
As was said back in the day, if you got some coffee in your blood, and all it takes is one drop.
But there's people darker than me that's married to white men.
Okay. And
they don't embrace their Blackness.
Yeah. So then you're not surprised. I just think that was part of her shock, that she wasn't prepared for it because she didn't think they noticed.
Well, that's the same thing that I'm telling you at the church that I just left. I'm telling you, there are people darker than I am that have not embraced their Blackness. And all of a sudden, when this whole thing erupted, now they want to call and talk. I don't have any conversation. I can't. Yeah. I don't know what to say to you.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, we are who we are. Life is what it is. You can't hide under a rock. You can't hide beneath a bushel, as they say. You cannot. You are who you are.
And you love who you love, and you got to be prepared for loving who you love.
Well, the hard part is when you love who you love, and they expect you to cross over into their world and leave yours, that's where the issue becomes.
Well, even if they accept being in yours, and there are going to be some people on both sides that will help you understand the challenge, and that's real. Shalia, it's been a pleasure.
It has.
And
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Back to you and Charlene. I'm glad I had this opportunity to talk, and I hope we'll do more. Next time we'll get deep and go into the underbrush.
I think we have to pick one topic and just
Yes,
stay on it.
yes, we'll do that. Don't let me veer you off.
Oh no,
I'm good at it.
This has been fun.
Yes.
Leah Gershner, owner of Insurance, did I say that right?
Insurance
Health Solutions, and a spectacular human being. I really appreciate you sharing with us tonight on Sisters of Wellness, this show that we started to live out that scripture in Titus for older women to teach the younger women. And we try to do that every time we have an opportunity to speak into the lives of others. And we thank you for sharing tonight.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you all so much for being with us. We look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a great day.